All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of the Tell No Lies podcast. I am your host, Devin Physique, and I am alongside the lovely co-host, Dr. Ashley Contorno.
Hello.
And so today we are going to be talking about
Boundaries.
boundaries.
Stop. Don't touch me there. This is my private square.
No, isn't it no square?
Yeah,
Is it?
private square.
I think it's no square.
R-A-P-E. Get your hands away
Where's
from
that from?
me.
Where's that from?
I have no idea.
Well, you know it very well.
I've been singing it my whole life.
Oh my God. Okay, so what are we talking about with boundaries?
So a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I think boundaries have saved my sanity and my life. And I don't feel like I had really strong boundaries in my life until Steven died, because I needed to protect myself and my well-being. And there was instances where I showed up for myself in a firm way that were kind of like boundaries. But I would say now, since his death the past 2 years, the reason why my life is so successful now is because I've been crafting this world that is framed with boundaries. And a lot of people don't like it. You know, people who benefit when you don't have them, like you've said before, don't like when you put them in place. But honestly, it's the smartest and most successful thing you can do for yourself as an adult.
Now, leading up to, that aspect, did you feel like you didn't have boundaries because you weren't thinking about that they were necessary?
I just don't think I knew enough about myself, or I was never taught strong examples of how to live your life for yourself. And especially with familial relationships, people just walk all over each other. And I think we as a society sometimes are so set up to just, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and this is how you're supposed to be doing it. So you just follow it like a sheep, you know what I mean, in the herd. But really, boundaries are what set you apart from that. And it's what gives you your own individuality and your own voice and your own preferences and how to keep them for yourself and no one else. I do think that there's a tipping point that I have had to check myself with of, am I being too rigid? Am I being too firm? But I think that there's soft boundaries and hard boundaries. And that's translatable in personal life, work life, dating life, just, relationships, where the soft ones can be soft for a reason, the things you would like to happen, and the hard ones need to stay there because they're important for your peace.
Correct. Now, when you say you started to instill boundaries, was this before Steven's death or after?
I would say kind of starting slightly before, but really after is when I really learned to use my voice to protect my peace. And really what taught me how to have boundaries is therapy. Identifying who I am as a person and keeping those things sacred is how you do that with boundaries. What do you think helped you?
Well, I remember, so to give context, I know that one of the things when we were on the other one, or the last one we filmed, so I think that was important. I liked what you said was when Steven died, remember we talked about how everyone was coming with an unsolicited opinion. And I think that was a big thing on why you set boundaries, right? That was a starter point for you?
Yeah, it definitely sparked something in me, because when people die, everyone feels like they're entitled to their own voice about what happened to your person. And I do get it that there's some instances where family will want to speak up, but at the end of the day, that was my husband, and I knew what he wanted for his life and for his death, because we actually talked about it explicitly to the point where we drank his ashes at his funeral because that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
And it's just insane how, especially in death, because that person's not there to speak anymore, people feel like they're entitled to have their opinion more strongly. And I remember at one point, very shortly after he died, my house was like a mausoleum. It was I had photos, life-size photos, 4 foot by 3 foot, and flowers, so many flowers that my friend Jenna and I went around the entire block, every single doorstep, and put a bouquet of flowers. And I put a sign up at his celebration of life with a trash can, and I had already alerted everybody that was coming, do not bring flowers. And then at the celebration of life, which was at the gym, I had this sign that says, if you've brought flowers, please throw them in the trash, because I don't want anything else that's going to die on me. And it's people don't even realize this because it's a gesture of pleasantry, but it's it can be a burden on that person. I don't want a house full of something that I have to maintain when I can't even think about eating or showering myself. And I told people to donate to charity instead, and I had a little box with a donation slip in it for a local charity, and also their QR code so people could donate online instead. If you want to give something in Steven's honor, give a donation to the Beacon House because that's going to mean more. It's a men's sober recovery house that Stephen had affiliations with that he cared about a lot. And that to me was more meaningful. And it kind of just like snowballed from there of like people telling me how I should live my life in the wake of my husband's death. Like, you shouldn't be posting sexual things online. You shouldn't want to move out of this place. You shouldn't want to sell your business. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I need to listen to what you think I need to do with my life. No, this is a hard boundary of mine that it's my life and I'm going to live it. And unfortunately, you don't get a say in what I get to do and don't do. And people don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's powerful when you find your own voice and your ability to stick up for yourself, especially when you don't have a partner there to back you up. Because that's something that I always had with Steven in my corner, like gassing me up, just kind of like pumping me up. And I knew I had that support system behind me. And now I needed to figure out how to do it on my own. And it's being strong with how I'm framing and outlining my life with boundaries.
Yeah, and see, like for me, I don't think I didn't start instilling boundaries to myself. Probably more so even recently. It was till therapy, which is crazy. Like just like you said too, because in the shreds days when all that stuff happened to me, we talked about how the opposite happened to me. You had an overbearing amount of people telling you how to go about your business, and for me, all the people that were in my corner, nobody wanted anything to do with me. So I never had to worry about that overwhelming feeling when I was going through stuff like people giving me their feedback. I had none of that, So it wasn't until I went to therapy that I had to start realizing how important boundaries are. And like you said, there's soft ones that can teeter a line where, hey, maybe it can get crossed for certain people or certain things. And then there's those hard ones where you're very strict on it. It's a no, but I didn't have to, I didn't start putting those into play until I went to therapy and really started putting in that work. Cause I think prior I wasn't really thinking about what were boundaries necessary. I was just kind of living my life. And if someone did me dirty, that's just how it goes and move on. I didn't realize, well, there's probably boundaries I let them cross that allowed them get to that point. And maybe that comes with age and maturity and going through experiences in life to realize, because, in your early 20s, are you thinking about setting boundaries, for yourself with people? I certainly wasn't thinking about those things.
Not really, no. And I feel like it's not until you're met with like a life experience or some type of resistance that shows you that you need to do something to protect yourself, where you're like, ooh, this hurt, that stung, that was kind of like a violation. Or you realize you're getting into the same scenario over and over again, and you're like, I need to do something to not let this happen again. And I think it's pretty easy for that to happen with family and with friends. Like a friend kind of just being, we've both had friends that are like just sponges that just kind of like suck, vampire friends that just suck the life out of you and just come to you when they need something. And you're realizing like, oh, this is a one-way friendship. And if I don't put a boundary up, this is going to continue to be a one-way friendship where they're just going to keep pulling my light out of me because they can see it and they can feel it and it helps them. But what is that leaving me with? It's leaving me feeling drained and empty and exhausted because I'm holding this person's hand through their life. And I also have like a pretty big moral issue supporting people who are perpetual victims, who constantly get themselves in situations that repeat over and over again. And it's so devastating, whether it's a weight loss journey and they're like going up and down in this. And I know that can almost sound cold maybe to some people. I'm not saying I'm not supportive, but it's like, at what point are you going to change your own behavior to stop being a victim of your own decision making? A woman who keeps going into relationships with guys over and over again, and it's the love of her life, and then 2 weeks later, he was an asshole, and I shouldn't have done it, and oh, I'm going to learn it for next time, but then 2 weeks later, she's doing it again. So it's like, I just need to protect myself from those people because I don't have the patience to be like, hello, what are you doing? Like, okay, you've done it once, you've done it twice. It's shame on you at this point. And I can't sit here and be a passive participant and just watch you keep making the same mistakes without trying to better yourself in any way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the flaws almost of therapy. Like, I think therapy is wonderful. And I think it should be a fucking class in high school, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's a life skill that we're not taught and that still has some stigma. But I think therapy reduces your tolerance for those types of people in your life, which sucks, right? Because you're kind of cutting out a sector of the population that maybe you could have connected with. But it's like, what's my value and what's my worth? I want the same type of people in my life that carry this value for themselves that I carry for me, and that's all I'm willing to accept.
Mhm.
At a certain point, you got to cut those people off.
Yeah, and well, like for you, like you're super empathetic too, right? So how do you teeter that boundary line without still wanting to help someone too, right? Being strong about it, but like, oh, I want to keep the peace too, and I don't want to have any issues with stuff. Like that also becomes like you have to still keep that boundary no matter how empathetic you are, because I think that's something where people will expose you too, right? If you're empathetic, they know you're that way, and they'll continue to exert as much energy as they can to expose that boundary, even though hey, this is a strong one for me, but I can't let them come back in just because I'm empathetic.
Yeah, I think that that's one of those kinda, like, soft boundaries, I would say, that kinda turns into a hard boundary, where I'm soft, where I'm like, "Ooh, I'm realizing this person is kinda this way. Imma let them go with it, but Imma see how this plays out." And then they do it again, and then, probably by the 3rd time, it's kinda like 3 strikes, I'm like, I'm a little over this." Like, I love being there for my friends. I love listening and hearing them out because I have so many friends who were there for me over and over again for the same problem that's never going to go away,
Hmm.
right? Like
Hmm.
my husband dying isn't something that's just going to go away. The motherfucker's dead forever, right? It's something that I'm going to have to deal with. And there's times where I've been like, "Ooh, am I just like I don't want to reach out because I'm afraid that I'm going to use up those cards, right?" But it's how you take those problems and how you take ownership of it. That to me is the difference. If someone's just coming to me with a problem and they have no ownership in their part that they're playing or their role in healing, that's kinda when I'm like, "You're just a victim. Everything's just happening to you. It's just there's a cloud that's just raining on you wherever you go. How is that the case?
Hmm.
Like, you need to put up a mirror and look at yourself." And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to move out of LA is because I wanted to surround myself with people who were doing cool things for themselves and elevating themselves because you are the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, and if the people that you're hanging out with are kinda doing the same shit they've been doing since you met them, you're not growing either.
Correct.
Or it gets boring being the most interesting one in the room all of the time. I wanna be surrounded with people who are more interesting than I am so that I can continue to level up, and that's, like, a boundary, I would say, in choosing who you surround yourself with, and then realizing how quickly, when you move into a new environment, maybe some of the connections that you're making aren't for you.
Yeah, and I think too, like for me, when it comes to extending the boundaries too, I think I just had a lot of friends because when you're younger, you want to go out and you want to have things to do, and so you don't think about those little things. But over time, I just realized when I put in the work for myself, I only wanted to surround myself with people that were doing very similar things and had those similar boundaries. And you just talked about how like those soft boundaries, like if I have to tell you more than one time about something that was crossing a boundary, that's enough to validate that you obviously didn't take it into consideration. You did it again. So I'm more strict about cutting it there. I think everyone deserves an opportunity to change their ways if something was crossed, even a hard boundary. Like if someone did something that I'm a friends with, like there's a good potential that I could oversee that. But if it happens again, then we're not having a discussion about it anymore.
I would say you're pretty firm though. Like you have the ability, which I don't. And maybe it's my empathy, or maybe it's like a male female thing, or some of the life experience you've gone through that's put you this way. But when you like cut somebody off, it's
Hmm.
like what are the guillotine things when you
Old school, like just chop their
yeah,
head off.
you're in the block and it's
Yep.
like, oh
Remember that boundary I told you not to cross? You did it again.
yeah.
Cut his
Where
head off with his head.
Whereas me, like, I'll be like, "Yeah, we're not friends anymore, but I'll still wave hi at you." And it's like, maybe it's just a personal preference because always wanna, like, keep the peace, but I think that's admirable, though, that you can be so firm where you're like, "Hey, you fucked me over, we're done."
Because I also look at it like, okay, let's say someone did something to you, and then there's another situation where maybe you have mutual friends. So to keep the peace, you're like, oh, they can come to, even though they did some dirty shit to you. That's also showing them that you're allowing their behavior to, in some way, shape, or form, be okay. And I think that's the part where that empathy, like I can still be empathetic, but when you cross that line, I'm going to remind you what it's like to no longer have me in your life, and you don't have any type of access. And I think you're empathetic. I know Stella's very very empathetic, and there's situations where instead of, someone's crossed your boundaries, instead of just saying no, like you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's fine. I want to keep the peace. And to me, I'm like, no, that motherfucker can't come, or no, this motherfucker can't do this, like, or I'm not involved. I don't even want to be in the same realm as them. And so that's where I'm very stern about, like, when you've already showed your colors to me, there's no turning back. You're going to be talking to yourself if you try to pursue me again.
Yeah. I'm that way in business. Like the other day, someone got in a fight at my gym, and I was just like, that's it. And they're a friend. They've been a member for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, you are no longer welcome back at South Bay Strength Company, period.
Well, you took out the personal side of it,
Yeah.
and reminded yourself that you own the gym, and that in order for people to respect you, that everyone has to have the same umbrella of rules. And if you cross those rules, I don't care if I've known you 5 years or 5 months, you still are going to be treated the same. And that is a hard, call to make, right? You have emotional connections with people because they've been in your gym, like that situation. And so you want to give some leniency, but if you do it for them, then you have to do it for everyone else.
Correct.
And then that's where that setting that firm thing is, like, people can still appreciate the fact that you're empathetic and understand the fact that you made a boundary and you stuck to it because there is protocols.
Yeah. I also feel like the people who are close in my life, I hope that they appreciate their closeness with me that much more, because they know kind of how hard it is to get like that let in. I would say that I don't have like I have a lot of acquaintances, but not a huge network of really close friends.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, when it does get that bad, you need to just kind of guillotine it. I've been getting better at it.
Slowly but surely.
Slowly. What is one of the hardest boundaries you have to keep in your life?
The hardest one to keep.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like let's say it's a hard boundary, and then sometimes you like make it soft. I have one that I just violated.
You did the weight one?
Yeah, he was 195.
But okay, so like he was one, but you're
He
close.
did not meet my 200. It's a hard boundary, and I flexed it
Why?
because
But it's a hard boundary, but you flex it. So is it considered a soft one? Then maybe we need to reevaluate these.
no,
these
it is a
pounds.
hard. I wouldn't say that I regret flexing my hard, but I mean 5 pounds. I don't know. There was other extraneous factors that added that 5 pounds of value that I was like, okay. But I would say it's a hard one I have to maintain because or like swiping on medium ugly dudes. Like sometimes I just get really bored and I forget my little mantra of there's a million dicks out there. Ashley, just keep swiping. And I just like, I'm craving some connection, right? And so sometimes I like soften that boundary because I really want to connect, because what I'm looking for is really, really rare. And if I just keep waiting, I'm going to be waiting for a really long time. But I feel like sometimes it's almost important to like not mess up your boundary, but do something that checks yourself. Be like, bitch, there's a reason why you did this.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reason why you don't swipe on medium ugly dudes and don't hook up with dudes that are under 200 pounds, because it ain't a good experience for you.
There's a reason why I was there.
Yeah.
What would be another one that's more, let's say, relatable to the public per se? That would be a hard boundary that you have a hard time, like that's similar to what you're just saying.
I would say stuff with family. Once I realized that our relationship was continuing because I kept calling, I stopped. I didn't hear from her for a year. And then I actually didn't realize that my Facebook and my Instagram, somehow, somewhere I clicked a yes and they got linked. So everything I was sharing on Instagram was sharing on my Facebook. And I don't want those people that are on Facebook to be seeing what I share on Instagram, to be honest. Like, yes, I have a public profile on Instagram, but I feel like that type of person is different. Like my family and people I went to high school with who may not follow me on Instagram. So I disassociated them. Lo and behold, a couple of days later, she texted me because she had been passively viewing my life through Facebook. And I realized that was one of the main reasons why I disassociated it, was that so she couldn't see it. Because I'm like, you know what? No, you don't get access to me like this. It's bullshit. You can't fucking pick up the phone and call me, but you're going to watch every single thing that I do? No. So a couple of days later, she texted me, "Are you mad at me? I haven't heard from you in a long time. And I noticed that I don't see your stuff on Facebook anymore." And I was like, of course. I was like, no, I'm not mad at you.
She just exposed herself.
Yeah. And then I called her. I remember the day that I moved from LA to Vegas, I called her on the way. We talked for like an hour and she was just like, "I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Yeah." Or she asked if I was mad at her. And I was like, "No, mom, I'm not mad at you, but I want to let you know that you haven't heard from me because I stopped calling. I wanted to see how long it took for you to pick up the phone and to call me." And she apologized and she was like, "Can we just pretend like none of that ever happened?" And I rolled my eyes and I was like, "Sure." She's a 62-year-old woman who is deathly afraid of confrontation still, even from her own child. And I have an older brother who she has zero relationship with. Zero from the time he was 14. Kicked him out of the house and basically hasn't talked to him since. So it irks me that there's a woman in this world who has birthed two children that literally cares that little to even pick up the phone and call them, especially my brother. And I've had hundreds of conversations with her about the way that she does not show up for my brother. So my patience with that is a little low, anyways. Called her the following month again. And then I called her on Mother's Day. So February, March, and April. No, I'm sorry. February, March, I think in May. Mother's Day was the last time I talked to her. Haven't heard from her since. I called those 3 times and she hasn't called me again. So now I'm at the point where I feel like she's going to need to call me like for about a year for me to want to pick up the phone and even call her. It's a boundary that I had set and then I had flexed and kind of softened it like, okay, I'll keep calling her. But it was like that wake up call again of like, there's a reason why you did this. And I don't wish to not have a relationship with her, but just like friends, I'm not willing to have a one-sided relationship. I don't feel like it's appropriate that the only time I talk to my mother is when I pick up the phone to call her. It works both ways. And I'm not trying to take score, but I'm also like, what value are you adding to my life? She criticizes me and likes to judge my decision making in my adult life that she has contributed nothing to since I was 17 years old. So I'm just like, in all of the things that I can give my time and attention to, it's going to be people who reciprocate that type of energy back towards me, whether they're family or not.
Hmm. Yeah, and you talk about the boundaries too, and like what's one that's hard to hold up. I feel like it's situational too, right? I don't hang out with a lot of people, so it's not always that my boundaries are even really tested. And then in what dynamic are we talking about boundaries? Because, like for instance, with you right now, the dating thing's kind of hot, right? So that's something that your boundaries are constantly being played with. But when you talk about family, there's probably not a lot of boundaries being tested because you don't. That's not at the forefront of your life right now. So even for me, I think it's situational where there's a time where your boundaries are being tested with your family. There's times where it's being tested in your dating life, your personal life. I think it all matters on what's predominantly happening the most right now. So for me, when you say what's one that's being tested, I don't have a lot of situations outside of my work where my boundaries are being tested. So right now, I think that the biggest thing as far as boundaries goes is within my work. And if it's a relationship, it's can someone come into my life and still be able to pursue me, knowing that what I do for work. So that's obviously a boundary. That's a hard one for me. And for me, I won't teeter that line. It's like they have to be firm with that. So I think a lot of my boundaries right now are predicated around the space in which I'm working in. You would have asked me maybe a couple years ago, it would have probably been something completely different because I wasn't doing this. When you're asking that question, I was thinking to myself, like, there's really nothing boundary wise that is consistently the same thing because my life is so different on different waves in your life. And right now, I don't really associate myself with a lot of people. Like maybe someone that's a social butterfly, their boundaries could be getting tested every day if they're out every single weekend and they're being tested around their workspace and then their friends and all these other things. Like I don't have a ton of friends that I associate myself with. You're one of my main ones, and I feel like our boundaries are very similar. So we're not testing each other in that sense. So I think the workspace is where my boundaries have had to constantly be fluctuated, whether it's who I'm working with and what we've talked about in other podcasts about like what are my no's to things. Like I don't like to work with people that have fuck trannies and all that kind of line. So those are strong boundaries for me. So I have definitive no's on things. I think if there was some sort of flexibility when it came to like what am I going to teeter, maybe it's the acceptance of someone coming into my space, like trying to pursue me and, having the emotional ups and downs of like pursuing me. Maybe I might have some leniencies of like understanding them when it comes to the boundary aspect. But for the most part, there's nothing right now that I feel like my boundaries are being tested in just normal day to day stuff.
What do you feel like are some of the boundaries, like the biggest tenets of boundaries for your work outside of like let's separate your working boundaries from your relationship boundaries, because I feel like as your friend knowing you, that's been one of the hardest things to balance is trying to fit in a relationship with your work is almost like it's you don't want to date someone you're working with, but you're having a hard time finding someone to date that doesn't understand your work. So, how do you keep those two things separate when they're so blended?
Yeah, and that is tough because I have dated someone that doesn't do it, and then I still feel like the ones that have are better suitable for me because they understand it, but then you're still taking the emotional side of things too, right? And I think we've had conversations where you're like, "Oh, well, you got to be understanding." And I'm stern about, like, if you're going to pursue me and you know what I'm doing, I think my biggest thing with my situation now is more like people making me feel uneasy about my work, even though they're still actively pursuing me. And I don't like that feeling. Like, I should be able to be in a space where you're coming in and bringing extra value into it and hyping me up, not making me question my boundaries of the things, as if almost to feel like what I'm doing is wrong, even though you knew I was doing it from the beginning. So testing in those boundaries, like the relationship side, has definitely been a test, whether they're doing the space or not. Because I think, take that out of the equation, whether they do it or not, it's the emotions, right? And the female emotions coming into a relationship. So I think every situation is different. I don't know that I would label one has been more beneficial than the other, because they've both had their pros and cons to things. But I think the overall aspect of, like, what is being tested is just the questioning for things with what I do, and having to talk about those things and elaborate more. And I feel like that's the waves where the boundaries can get, influx in things. But it's changing. It changes situational to situational.
Do you think that there'll be a time, like, let's say you met someone that was just it? Do you think that there would ever be a time where Devin would change what he was doing in order to pursue this person who, like, maybe it's like, okay, maybe I need to change instead of trying to find someone that's going to fit my narrative. Maybe my narrative needs to change to fit somebody else.
Well, I also look at it like I'm doing this knowing that that is eliminating a vast majority of candidates. So I wouldn't change what I'm doing because I know this isn't forever for me either. So I think that if we were solely talking about right now and I was prioritizing what I'm doing or a relationship, I would prioritize what I'm doing and my workspace and focusing on myself. But I know that there's going to be a time and a place where this isn't the main focus anymore. And then maybe there is some leniency. But if someone came in right now and they were the perfect person, where you're asking me to gut my income,
Yeah.
and I think that's, for me, it's work. And I think that's the big thing too, when I'm clarifying that it is work. It's not like I'm doing this and I'm just fucking all these girls and I'm like, oh, I'm just loving every aspect of this. I think that's the huge separation, where I say, like, this is work. So, like, I don't see it any other way. You can view it from a different perspective because you're not doing it, but I don't. So I don't think if the perfect person came in, I would be saying to myself, oh, I'm going to eliminate this. I might say, how can I get out of it faster? Like, what can I do to supplement this, per se? But there wouldn't be a situation where the perfect person came in and I just decided I was going to fold ship over here and actively pursue them, unless they were like my sugar mama or something.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity to introduce that we have sponsorship opportunities available for advertising. No, I'm just kidding. If anyone's interested, for all of our viewers that listen, how do you create distance without guilt? Because we touched on it a little bit, where you're just like, you're dead to me. But do you ever feel feelings of guilt with that? Because that's something I still have a hard time with, that I think makes me linger on more.
Now, when you say that, like, you're hesitant to cut someone off because you feel guilty for what?
Hurting their feelings.
Yeah, see, we're not the same on that. Because, I mean, even like, when things don't work out with other people, you feel the need to let them know that, right? And we've
sure.
talked about how that's a good quality to have, but then you have to have the repercussions. For me, I guess I look at it like we all have to manage our emotions. So I'm doing what's best for me. And if that means I had to cut you off or whatever, you got me to that point. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and decided to cut you off. Like, you had to have done something, or vice versa. So I think if someone cut me off, I'd also think of it the same way. This is a funny example, but I'm not always the most affectionate, right? So I've told girls before, like, when I want to cuddle, I'll let them know, kind of a thing. And they're like, well, what if I don't want to cuddle with you and you don't want to? Then I understand. You see? So it's the same concept of if someone cut me off, I'm going to understand too, because I've been in those scenarios where I cut someone off too. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, I can cut you off, but if you do it to me, I'm going to feel some type of way, just like with the cuddling aspect of things. And most people react like, oh, shit, that's not what I was expecting as his response. I understand. So I think that over time, I've realized like when I went through my shred stuff and just through the grueling stuff of being alone and stuff, that's a vital, important piece. Like when you've crossed that, it's for my own sanity. So I don't have the remorse of feeling some type of way. And back in my other days, I could cut you off and I was cold hearted. Now, yeah, I can sit there and go, oh, it's unfortunate it didn't work, but I'm doing what's best for me.
I would say that that's why I give explanations to people, whether it's like a guy that I was talking to or a friend that I'm not talking to anymore. That's one of the reasons why I give my little paragraph of goodbye to people, whether that backfires in my face and they say something shitty to me because they're not mature enough to handle it. I feel like I need to say my piece carefully and fully to let you know why you're not going to be a participant in my story anymore. That kind of lessens that burden of guilt because it's not like I'm just saying, go fuck yourself, like, oh, or blocking them or whatever. It's like, even if it's not what you want to hear, I'm going to tell you why this is happening. And then that kind of lets me not feel as guilty because I said my piece.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you ask that question. When you're saying it now, it like makes you feel less, not guilty, but like less emotions attached where you didn't at least give an explanation, which I think that's great that you do that. It's just the repercussions of what someone might say back to you and knowing that, hey, you're saying what you're saying to them to lessen the emotional blow for you, right? Because no one wants to cut someone off, like especially if it's someone that you've built a friendship with, a relationship with, obviously that's not the end goal. So when it ends, you don't want to have to feel like that's the direction. So I can definitely understand where you're saying where you give them an explanation, whether they deserve one or not. It's not even for them, it's for you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing too. I think that's situational for me. I don't feel that I need to tell everyone every single time. I think there's certain situations where it just fizzles out on its own, and we've had discussions about that. And I'm like, see, didn't need to tell them anything. And you're quick to be right out the guns to be like, you didn't say anything, like, and I'm like, no, why? It just fizzled out. And then weeks later, you're like, have you heard from them? No. And you're like, oh, well, I guess so. So sometimes I feel if I jump the gun too soon, then I wasted energy that I didn't need to give to that person for them to potentially talk shit or whatever. Because, even with the boundaries thing too, like I feel like we extend those things with people and then inevitably we still get that same response in back. So it's like, why even say that? And then they say some mean shit. Then you question that whole relationship with them to begin with. Like, is that how you really feel? Or are you just saying that because you're a little bit upset?
I would say anytime I get clapped back when I lay out my facts of why we're no longer on speaking terms or we're not going to be friends or move forward and they lash out, it's just out of, they're backed in a corner.
But if you're somebody that is empathetic and you're someone that already feels guilty about the ending of that, you also now deal with the repercussions of the mean comments. And then how do you take that? Like, how have you felt you've handled it over time? Because there's been some times where it stung a little bit.
I would say it stings, but then it's almost easier to get over in the sense of I'm like, well, they just showed me their true colors.
Correct. Yeah, that's the big thing too, is like, how do you handle that? Because you're going and extending yourself for the empathetic side that you feel you need to, disperse yourself, but then they say something like that. And then how do you internalize that? And how long does that sit with you before you're like, oh, burn and turn?
I would say no longer than 24 hours. Usually there was a friendship that I had to end that was here of someone whom I was really close with, who I felt some type of way about it for a little bit just because we were really close. But then I ultimately realized like this person was never really there for me in the way that they were presenting to be there for me. It was a one-sided relationship that they were getting something from me and kind of giving nothing else to me. And it just like anything, it just takes a little bit of time and then the burn kind of lessons.
Yeah, and see, I think the start of the shred stuff and transitioning to that and the X and then where I'm at now, I think that all those things compiled when I finally went to therapy and started to figure out my boundaries, I realized I went back in my timeline and I said, because my big thing is like when things don't work out, what's the lesson to be learned? So I went back in those stages and said, what did I do wrong here? Both me and also what did I allow people to do? And then I went to the next phase, and that's where I started to build boundaries for myself, where I'm like, man, I pour into people. Are they pouring back into me? And I'm not a tit for tat person, right? I match people's energy, and we've had discussions about that too. But for me, like, I just felt like I was always giving people the max effort of me, and I wasn't always getting that reciprocated, and I blindly just let it happen. And so over time, I think people were just taking advantage of me. So I think that's a big boundary for me, is like, if I'm going to be putting any sort of my time into you, is it reciprocated the same way? And I base that off of a vibe. So if it's some way, shape, or form that changes, then in my head I just take a mental note of that. But before, I wasn't doing that. If I felt somebody was just holding on to me for dear life, I wasn't even thinking like, are they benefiting me in any way? Now, through all those trials and tribulations of things, I think that's what's allowed me to start to set, more firm boundaries for myself. And it's hard too, because, people are going to test you on those boundaries and make you feel guilty for having them. I think that was one of the, biggest things for me, when you're setting those boundaries or being honest, is the responses you get from people, and how it makes you feel internally.
Yeah, that's been a big theme for me with moving and my life post the death of my husband. So many people giving me guilt and shame for my decision making, how I want to live my life. Like, you shouldn't be posting that online. What would your husband think about that? Well, you don't know the first thing about my husband if you're saying
Well,
that.
what if your husband told you all the things that you were doing is what he wanted you to do?
But also, what if he hated it?
Yeah.
Guess what?
Who cares?
He's dead.
Yeah.
There's no world where I'm going to live my life for someone who is dead.
Mhm.
And that might offend a lot of you listening, but it is the truth. A living, breathing entity cannot serve something that is not living and breathing anymore. Will I always think of him? Will he always be on my mind? And will I always honor him? Yes. The way that I honor my life is honoring my husband.
Now, would you say, okay, look at that scenario, whether you look at it from the death or not, it's no different than someone coming to you in the same instance and saying, what would your mother think of this? Or it's like, you're your own person. And so I feel that's very much the same thing. Like, yeah, you guys were married and he died, but that's no different than someone coming to you and saying, how would your mother feel about this? Well, I'm a grown ass adult. So if I chose to do something that my mom didn't believe in, or my dad didn't believe in, or my family didn't, who gives a fuck? I believe in it, so I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So I think those two are the same things too, but I think also a lot of people are fearful to live the life that they really want to live, because they're worried about other people's perception of them, or are they going to judge you or whatever. That's just an easy one to use, because it isn't a death situation where there's some side of it where they can go, well, how would Steven feel about this, to make you feel guilty?
Yeah, and I think it's laughable because it doesn't work. Because if you knew my husband, he would, like, my OnlyFans, when I had it for 5 days, he would have been taking my photos and be my first subscriber. He would have been like, what can I do? You want me to be your stunt dick? Like, he would post me, like, naked on his Instagram. And I just think it's funny that people think the way that you should honor someone that has passed is to emotionally, socially, and physically regress and be less of yourself.
Yeah, just be more miserable.
Right. And so that's when my boundaries really instilled, when I'm like, oh, you don't want me to move? You want me to live in this place that I am so traumatized by, where I had to watch my husband die, where I have to drive by the hospital where he passed away at every single day? You really care about me that much that you want me to just keep living in this environment that makes me feel miserable? You don't know me then. You don't care about me.
Now, why do you think people do that?
Because they don't like change.
Oh, that's right. Yep, because it could jeopardize the gym and them going there, or how their day-to-days go, because you are altering a dynamic. Or if you moved and the gym's no longer there, then that's compromising their thing. So it's not really about that they actually care about the decision you're making for Steven or for your relationship. It's the decision you're making that's going to alter their life.
Or additionally, like, I would like to think that I'm a pretty cool person. And like, when you collect cool individuals in your life, you don't want them to leave. Not only from, will their gym change as me being the owner, removing myself from it, but their dynamic of their friendships, of losing, a key character that they used to interact with all of the time, because I want to move and change my life. And I think that fear of judgment of what other people think holds so many people back from truly living their lives, that's almost like a boundary that I've instilled. It is a boundary to me to honestly not give a shit about what you think. Like, you're my best friend here. And if I was doing something and you were like, Ashley, I don't really know if I agree with, or if you were judging me for something, I'd be like, go fuck yourself, Devin. I still love you, but go fuck yourself. Now, if you were like, hey, as your friend, I'm going to express that I have a fear because this action that you're doing could present with these consequences. And let me lay this out to you and reasons why, because I care about you. That is what I want to hear from a friend. Not like, oh my God, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, like telling you what you should or shouldn't do.
Yes.
But and that's, just like I've said too, like how you approach a situation, whatever it is, it's how you word things, right? And if they worded it that way, it's the same context, but worded completely different where you don't feel attacked. And it's genuine. Like when they said it that other way versus what you just said right now, that one's for them, this one's for you.
Correct.
And that's the huge distinctive difference there. Because even if I was giving you my opinion to something, I'd be giving it to you knowing that you either take it or you don't. And that's what my reason for giving it to you, not you need to do this or why are you doing this. I would just say, hey, this is my opinion. You either take it or you don't. And it's received differently when it's said that way. I always with arguments or having discussions, like if someone made you feel some type of way, if you came at them and said you did this, 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 and this, well, your natural reaction is going to be to lash right back at them. But if I came to you in sincerity and said, Ashley, you did this and it really hurt my feelings, blah, 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 you're going to accept it in a more like heartful way because you realized it was affecting how I felt versus me just attacking you with it.
We actually just went through that.
Who, me and you?
Yeah.
Do we?
You were being a little closed off and I was trying to reach out to you. And then finally on like the fourth fucking day, I texted you and I said, Devin, you're making it very hard to be your friend right now. I want to be there for you and to help you. And you're making it very difficult for me to do so. So what can I do to help you? And then you finally like responded, but I could have been like, Devin, what the fuck? What's your fucking problem? And think that it's about me.
Correct.
But it's not. And
actually that you say that, like, I don't know if it was just timing or whatever, but the way you said it was in a more sympathetic way than making it about you.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic changes a lot of different things. And I think obviously some people, I don't usually have a lot of people that are in my corner or that genuinely care to express it that way. So I think the way it was presented to me, that it was allowing me to step back, even in those moments when you were messaging me and I didn't necessarily know what to say, which is why I was keeping to myself. Also, we've had other instances where I've done that before. That's how I cope with things until I'm ready to speak. But when you said it to that, it almost created a safe type of boundary where I was able to come to you in a different way because of how you said something. So that's a lesson to be learned in that is how you present things, because regardless of what it is, if we're talking about friendships, relationships, them coming to you about, how you should handle things with Steven, it is all about how you handle things and how you say them and present them.
I realized that I needed to change my approach to elicit a response out of you because what I was doing wasn't working. So it's like the 3 strikes with myself, right? Am I going to keep trying to do the same thing that's not getting me anywhere, or do I need to do something different? And I feel like when you care about someone and you let it show, that's going to naturally open up and be a safe space, right? So it's like you give what you get and you can take it.
Yeah, and you show that too, because I think anyone could sit here and go, I'm always here for you, but are they? And so I think in those types of dynamics, it shows somebody, because it's easy for situations when stuff happens for someone to be that's close to you, but not really, to be like, oh, if you need anything, I'm here for you. I mean, that's an easy thing to say, but are you really? I think it's those dynamics of conversations that when push comes to shove, you remember those types of situations where you go, no, they are actually, versus just the easy, I'm here for you if you need me, because most people know you're not going to come to them.
And sometimes when someone's going through it, it's hard to even articulate what your needs are, let alone take the step to express them to someone else. So it's like if you can try to meet someone where they're at, then they're more likely to open up to you.
Yeah.
Like when Steven died, people are like, what do you need? Like, what can I do for you? I'm here for you. It's like, I don't even know, like,
what I need for myself.
Yeah.
To answer that question.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things about having and instilling boundaries within yourself for your life is that they can constantly change.
Yes. Yes.
And for example, when I came over today, I was telling you that I am kind of changing my boundary with dating for the first time in 2 years. I'm ready to assume the position. You know what I'm saying? And that position that position is just not casual anymore. Like I actually want to date men.
Okay. Now, aside from that, because we were talking about this too, do you feel like that enlightened mushroom trip that you had was part of this idea that you were like, you know what, I want to go into that, or was just coincidental?
I think it was a cacophony of several
Wait, a
factors.
what?
A cacophony.
Cock.
Cacophony.
Can we look that up in the dictionary? What is it?
Cacophony?
Cacophony.
Okay,
That sounds like it would be in the fucking spelling bee.
it is like the confluence
Cacophony.
of many things coming
Can you
together
put
at the
that in
same
a
thing.
sentence, please? Cacophony.
Define cacophony.
Cacophony.
Because the fuck if I know how to spell it. Cacophony. Well, one is a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds.
Well, that's definitely not it.
No. Am I using a mixture? A mixture. Okay. It can be a mixture.
Close enough.
Yes. So a mixture of things happening. I did take a psychedelic mushroom trip yesterday, but I also had a sexual experience over the weekend that really kind of changed. I'm like, I'm over it. I never had the college phase where I was a serial monogamist. Like before I met Steven, I think I had sex with 5 guys and Steven, or 6 guys, and Steven was the 7th. So I never really got sexually explorative. And I would say since I'm in this phase of casually dating, I have not been looking for anything emotional. It has just been purely physical. Now, don't get me wrong, I ain't out there like fucking hoeing around, because my boundaries with that are condom use and STD testing. But of the partners that I've decided to connect with, nothing has been emotional. It has just purely been physical. There's been one guy that I've had like a slight emotional connection with, but I'm ready to lead with that emotional foot first now and just like explore something that I haven't. So that boundary has changed from like, I don't want anything to do with you emotionally. Just
And that's because you've had enough encounters with individuals and the sex aspect and
I've done enough fucking for nothing. I want to fuck for something now.
yeah, enough to, and when I broke up with my ex, I spent that whole year just fucking, probably at least 100 girls easily. Like, and it was just burn and turn.
At least it's only taken me like 4 months.
Yeah, and so when we had that other discussion on the podcast about the meaningless, I think when I got into OnlyFans, it was such a good transition for me because it validated the pointless part of it, right? I'm not saying I work with someone that's pointless, but like I'm not going to treat them like they're nothing. But the sex that's being performed is pointless in the sense there's no meaningful connection in we're trying to pursue each other. So I think that's where it was easy for me to transition that and go, okay, it's not pointless anymore because I'm making money. But I realized over time in that whole year, it was like burn and turn, and it just left no emotions connected. Where I'm like, I don't want to feel like this. Like, yeah, any dude could sit here all day long and say, oh, it's cool to fuck all these bitches, but at the end of the day, when you go to bed and you're alone, it still feels the same. So I think that's kind of where you got that phase, and you've had enough experiences in this little period of time to have a vast majority of different encounters where you could sit here and go, okay, I didn't like this. I kind of liked this. Definitely didn't like this. And the whole circumference of it is like, it still matters when it means something more than anything else. Guy, girl, whatever, it still matters when it means something.
And I didn't have the emotional availability before, and now I do. So now I'm reassessing that boundary and changing it to say, before I was like avoiding men who were emotionally available because I didn't want them to like me.
Now, are you saying your emotional change is due to the fact that there was these encounters where it left you feeling some type of way, or what changed from an emotional standpoint that you feel you're open to it now?
I would say both. Like, there was no emotional availability for me before, but there was physical availability. So I was riding that wave, and the physical availability has stayed, but now my emotional availability has grown. So now there's a gap because just the physical isn't satisfying me anymore. I want that emotional. I have that emotional capacity, so I want that emotional connection as well.
Now,
as the
out
physical.
of all those guys that you were hanging out with and stuff, were there any of them that you felt any type of emotion to?
I mean, yeah, there was one who like I entertained. We kind of like lightweight
Which
dated
one was that?
for a couple. The green flag guy.
Yeah, but he was a friend before, so he doesn't count. Yeah, you knew him in California, right?
No, just for dating.
No, but I'm saying like the dating app ones where it was like
He
fresh.
was just dating app.
He was the one that stayed at your house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you knew him from California.
I did,
But
but
from
we
a
met.
dating app.
Yeah.
He just had a long-standing history
We
with
had
you.
talked for like 3 months. That was the longest. It was the only guy I had like some. There's like.
Okay, so cut him out. Okay, he don't count. Like, what about all the newer ones? Has there been any type of emotion to them whatsoever?
No.
Yeah, you're just a dude.
I'm just a dude. But
Yeah.
I'm ready. I feel like I've had my fill. Literally.
I've had my fill.
I've had my fill. You know what I'm saying?
But you technically haven't because it fills up in the condom.
Still full nonetheless.
Yeah, it's still full nonetheless. But it goes back to what I said. Like, you still are a female, and there's still more emotional
I would
drive.
say I'm human.
No, what do you mean human?
Because humans crave connection.
Correct.
Right. So like there was a point where I didn't want any emotional connection, and now I do. I would say male, female. We all.
I'm just saying it's more predominant in a.
But I don't need to have an emotional connection to have sex.
Correct.
I don't.
Yes, which is a rarity for females, I believe. Most females would need to feel connected to a man in order to fuck them.
Right. Open their heart. Open their legs.
You just need the physical attraction.
Right.
That was. Now, do you feel like that's changing?
No.
So physical attraction is still.
So what I've done to be able to broaden my horizons is I'm expanding my distance of viable suitors, because Vegas is difficult in that when people come here for their bachelor party for the weekend and they're here Thursday through Sunday morning, there's not really time to make meaningful connections.
Correct. It's quick in and out.
Right. They're here to party all weekend long, and it's like, what am I going to do? Go to the Palms pool day party and try to connect with someone? Like, it's not the type of atmosphere to facilitate and foster what I'm looking for. So I'm willing to like find other connections in different places like Phoenix or whatever, and have maybe something that's like more than casual, not super serious, but that I can still connect with someone, and I have availability to fly or they can fly. And
that goes back to why I said I don't do the dating apps either. And maybe you're realizing that even more with Vegas, how it's like a very commuter aspect of someone coming in and out. And if someone's coming in and has the app, they're not from here, but their intention here is a bachelor party or whatever. So it goes back to why I would pursue the Instagram and social media versus the dating side, because now that you're opening your horizon, if you met someone on Instagram that didn't live here, you're able to build a connection with them prior to them coming here, because their intention wasn't to come here to party, it was come here to see you.
Right.
And I think that would be something that would curve you in a different direction. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, we found each other on Instagram. I lived in freaking Texas or whatever, and we're chatting back and forth. We have great dynamic, and I'm specifically flying here just to hang out with you. I think that's the next phase of where you could still fuck, you can still have fun, but now they're coming here with intention of potentially seeing where this goes with you, or do you guys vibe? But the next big thing is, can you entertain them in your house?
I would probably have them get a hotel.
But see, okay, so that to me, I would be like, okay, so then they got to spend all this money.
Or we could go into it where, so let me give the viewers/listeners context. Since Stephen has passed away, although I have had sexual encounters and been with men physically, there's only been one man who I've shared a bed with overnight. Mm-hmm. And it was for 3 nights, and I didn't particularly like it.
And it was the green flag guy.
Yes.
The one that had the best chance of you potentially liking it.
It was in February, and maybe I just wasn't emotionally ready for someone to be in my space that much. It was just a lot, like to share a bed with someone. I never slept over anybody's house, and that's the only person that's ever slept over my house. So if someone came from another state to come be with me, if they didn't already offer to get a hotel, I would probably say, hey, when you do come, can we be under the understanding that you're going to stay? I have 3 bedrooms in another bedroom unless I invite you in to sleep in my room.
Absolutely. That's fair.
I don't think that we should set that expectation unless it's warranted.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the next phase that you're in, because I feel like you put yourself in this little dating pool on the Bumble and the kink apps and the all these other things. But again, they're, very, very few and far that actually live here. And then the ones that are coming in, it's the quick ones. So I think maybe your next stage is go to the Instagram, like I told you from the beginning.
I don't know.
Devin is always right.
I
think you need to try it.
I've tried to slide into people's DMs a couple of times, and it's been unsuccessful every time.
What the fuck? What are they?
It's probably happened like 4 times.
And how does that encounter go?
Actually, no. One time was successful, but then I didn't end up liking him. I don't know. Just I just don't. Maybe I ain't got game. I don't know.
Or well, how long ago was that?
The last one was probably 6 or 7 months
Oh
ago.
my God, but that's you're a whole new person now.
You're right.
That was before you met me, before we had this podcast. I feel like a lot of things has changed since you moved here.
Am I changing my boundary right now that I'm willing to slide into the
I think
DMs?
you are. Because let's just say, like for me, I would rather a girl slide into my DM to show interest. That would, to me, that's a green flag. Green, baby.
I'm
Here I
colorblind.
am. I'm colorblind, but it's green. I know it is. Yeah, that to me, like I want a girl to show interest to me. I don't like the chasing game. So for me, if a girl's in my DM and is showing interest, that to me, she's already winning. Even if I wasn't maybe necessarily 100% interested in her right out the gate, she already is showing me that she can exceed a girl that I thought was more attractive than her because of the not aggression, but because of the what's the word
Like their persistence?
because of the notion that they can just go and they don't care. They're willing to just slide into my DM and show the assertiveness that they're interested.
I guess my thing with that is like on the dating app, there's intention of someone being available on a dating app. Yeah, there's the 10% that are married, catfish, whatever. But for the most part, the majority of people are on there for a specific purpose. So it's like that mode is already pre-established where sliding into somebody's DMs opens up the possibility of like maybe they're married or maybe they're not looking for that or maybe I'm not their type.
But that can happen on the apps too. I just think the apps don't have a lot of substance. And what I've seen on there from my little experience, there's not a lot of good quality. And so I've just never, I know I say that with my ex fiance there, but that's just like you with you sitting here, like I probably will never find another Steven again. So same thing, like I think those are just a 1 in a million type of shots that happen like that. But I think Instagram has more of, because at the end of the day, even on the dating apps, you're going afterwards and looking at their Instagram. That's one of your protocols. So like, why not just find them on there then? Maybe you're just not doing enough searching. Well, you haven't done it in 7 months. So I think we need to pivot to Instagram. Just start liking some dudes' photos, and I'm sure if they're interested. They're gonna slide into that motherfucking DM real quick.
All right, so real time, my boundaries are changing, but I guess dating apps have felt comfortable and safe, and because I didn't have any emotional availability, and I was only looking for one thing. I always say, never be too married to your own ideas to not realize when it's time to divorce them. Like maybe it's time to divorce this idea, or at least become ethical non-monogamous with what I'm doing and entertain another idea and have them both coexist at the same time. But I think regardless, we've went on a tangent of my dating life as always. What's important is it's great to know when to be flexible with your own boundaries, to know when to change them, and make sure that it's for you and not because someone else is pressuring you, like my condom boundary or whatever. You know all too well that is something that I'm a firm. That's if you want to have sex with me, we're wearing a condom. That is a boundary that I have. So it's like, make sure if you're changing your boundaries, it's because you want to and not because
someone else is making you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I say with the OnlyFans, like the boundaries has always been big because it's easy to get tested for someone to stretch that boundary. I've had conversations with girls. Does Stella say this? I don't know if she did, but where it's like someone gets. I worked with a girl where she told me like she was with a friend and they were going to collab with another guy, or that girl was. She's like, oh, join in with us, and she was already believing that was going to happen. Well, she didn't want to. Well, she was easy to say, no, I don't want to. But that's a scenario where you're getting thrown in right there in that moment for, hey, come do a threesome. And you have to be able to be strong about the test there and saying, no, I'm not interested in doing that. Not, oh, okay, I'll do it because you don't want to let them down. And that's the empathetic side, right? Where you're like, oh, I don't want people to view me in a specific light, or I don't want them to be let down that I said no. So I think that, like you said, not altering it for someone else, altering it for yourself. That's why I think my boundaries consistently change.
I think it would be easy for you to change your boundaries for money. It's not for someone else specifically, but for someone else's money. Like, you don't do solo content.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably open up a revenue stream by doing solo content, but you don't want to cater to the people who would be purchasing that solo content. So that's a boundary for you that you've really never.
Yeah, I've just crossed it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm firm about that. So, but I think there's flexibility. Now, would I do that if I was making a shit ton of money and it may be,
Everybody's got a price.
yeah, everyone's got a price, but I instilled it the way I did because it was how I wanted to see my boundaries, not for anybody else. But I've had, I don't think I've ever told this story, but I had a gay dude that wanted me to pee in the toilet for a minute, and he paid me 2 G's
For a minute?
just to pee in the toilet. That was the hardest piss I've ever taken.
I was going to say, like,
I was sitting there filming it, which is dick out, and it was like, are you gonna pee? Like,
Stage
dude,
right.
I think that the first 30 seconds, it couldn't come out, and it was because of
So
the
it's
idea.
definitely a minute.
Yeah, it was the idea of knowing that I'm filming this video for a guy.
Yeah.
You know, not like if a girl said go pee, I would have been fucking spraying all over probably.
Yeah.
But it was just that. So, and that didn't bother me, but it would have to be something like that. So, I mean, there's a price for everything, but yeah, I've always been firm on that. But I think the boundaries definitely change, and mine consistently change. There's also things that happen in circumstances where you have to add boundaries to your things, you know, that weren't a boundary before. You had an encounter with somebody, and now you're like, oh shit, I've never been faced with this type of dynamic. Now I have to put this on my list of things that are considered a boundary for me.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
Until you fuck around and find out.
Yeah,
No, that's true. That's really true. It's like, I didn't even know this was something that I felt some type of way about, but now that I'm faced with it, how am I going to address it and move forward? Because otherwise, again, it's shame on me if I don't.
Yeah,
for sure.
So the boundaries definitely change, but I think the whole circumference of my boundaries are just based off of all the things that when I started to instill boundaries, was where I said I went back and I realized, like, why didn't these friendship dynamics work? Was it because I didn't have right boundaries for myself and I was letting people cross things, or why did this not work, and taking accountability for different things? But yeah, I think the boundaries constantly changing, and you know, even like you said, the hard ones, they're hard, but they could still change too. You know, circumstantial, but like I think the main thing that you said that made the most sense too is it changes because you wanted it to change, not because someone else made you feel that you needed to change it.
For sure. I think that's the biggest takeaway is let it be firm when it needs to be, and let it change and be flexible when it's time. And don't pigeonhole yourself into keeping something so rigid just because that's a value that you once held. Life is dynamic and things are constantly changing, and you're allowed to evolve your boundaries with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But we appreciate you guys listening, tuning in as always, whether you're watching our YouTube, which is Tell No Lies Podcast, seeing us on Instagram, Tell No Lies Podcast, or visiting our website, tellnolieспod.com.
Yeah, we've been getting great feedback on the transparency of things, and we want to keep, you know, bringing this episode by episode. You know, I love being able to just sit on here and chat with you about stuff. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about specific things, and we kind of just unfiltered, whether it makes you look stupid or it makes me look stupid, or we're just shooting the shit about stuff. I think that's what people relate to the most. And when we started this podcast, that was the main thing for me, as I wanted to talk about things where I just say whatever the fuck I want, you know, and you say whatever the fuck you want. And
I never thought I was going to tell the internet about the size of my clitoris.
Yeah, the big clit.
Until it happened.
Yeah, and even in that episode, like with that, there was not one person that said something negative.
Yeah.
Not a comment, nothing, because I feel like the podcast we've created is so open and it's so honest. What the fuck could you say back to me?
Right.
Because I told you the
I'm
truth.
sharing my truth.
Yeah.
So
and that's,
take it or leave it.
And that's one of my big things is the truth, is sharing the truth, where I spent a lot of years fabricating my truth and not being 100% and transparent there. And it's very empowering to leave an episode knowing that we just left it all out there, and there wasn't anything where we're like, we should have said this, huh? And we did it. I've never done an episode with you where we finished and I was like, man, I hesitated to say this. We just fucking say it.
Doesn't it feel so good to just love who you are, embrace who you are fully, and hide nothing?
Correct.
No matter who you're talking to. This is me. Unapologetically, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
And no one has anything to say back to that.
Right.
That's why it's like most people are talking shit because they know you're lying,
Yeah.
or because they know you're not being your true self. But, you know, if you could sit here and intro 5 seconds in that you have a big clit, I mean, what the fuck could someone say? Right? There isn't anything else that you could say.
No. You can hate on it all you want, or you could suck on it all you want. I don't care.
You could try it.
On that note, I'm Ashley Contorno.
Devin Physique, thank you guys for another great episode and joining in. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Peace.